Hello and welcome to SLP Newsbeat. I'm Kirby Allen. SLP Newsbeat is dedicated to bringing you news from the St. Lucia Labour Party, its activities, its policies, and information on its candidates as the party prepares for the next general elections. SLP Newsbeat will also bring you commentaries on political issues, historical notes, and other special features. So welcome once again to SLP Newsbeat. And now the headlines. Castries East MP and SLP political leader Philip J. Pierre defends his record as a parliamentary representative. The SLP candidate for Micoud North, Jeremiah Norbert, says his jubilant welcome home from the people of the constituency is a sign of coming change. The SLP spokesperson for Health, Moses Jean-Baptiste, says the UWP decision not to continue with Health Minister Mary Isaac as a candidate in the next general elections is a clear demonstration of the government's failed health policies. And now the details. The parliamentary representative for Castries East and leader of the SLP, Philip J. Pierre, has once again defended his record as the elected representative for that constituency. Since the 2021-2022 budget debate and confirmation of the Belrose Doctrine from his opponent, Pierre has been responding to UWP claims that he has done nothing for Castries East and in particular for the Marcia community. Speaking on the Radio 100 program, What Makes Me Mad on Tuesday morning, Pierre stressed that his priority has been in the human and infrastructural development of the constituency.
I want to speak to you a lot about the human development, how we've enhanced that community. We brought jazz. We had Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela made a public address on the Mindu Philip grounds, unheard of, arguably one of the greatest world leaders. We brought him into a place that Alan Shastney said should be good only for demonstrations. We brought him there, and then he addressed the people from the Mindu Philip Park. Nelson Mandela. That is the esteem that we held the people of Castries East in. We brought Nelson Mandela there. People have forgotten that. I think they either forget or they deliberately forget. And most of the people are the people who are now shouting loudest, what's he done for Marcia in 25 years? They oppose these things because they did not think that the people of the constituency deserve that kind of attention. So let us look at some of the infrastructural things we did in this constituency. And Andre, when I was getting ready for that interview, I went into my archives and I found a document. The document says, one good term deserves another, which outlines my achievements in the constituency. And I want to just, if you give me a chance, Andre, I will just read to you. And it's not, these are things that are documented and can be proven, okay? It says, we improved garbage collection throughout the constituency to ensure cleaner, more pleasant environment for residents and to safeguard public health. Human development. You may recall, I don't know if you used to be in that area at that time, Andrew.
London.
Yeah. There was garbage in the entrance of Marchand and in the middle of Marchand and on the gap between Antrim and Bagatelle. Garbage. It was a garbage dump. You understand? I promised the people that we'd clear it. There was no garbage collection in the areas of George Charles Boulevard, Blackman. No garbage trucks went there. Nothing. Garbage was thrown. I did that. Right now, they have the service which I introduced and the Labour Party introduced. And the pictures are there to show you. It was a garbage dump. Everybody came from wherever and dumped the garbage in that area. And probably people are younger, they may not know that, but the residents understand that, those who remain there. And this is why they've supported me. We clean that. Then, let us look at basic human needs and human development. We installed 180 streetlights to provide a safer environment, especially for persons using the streets at night. And what keeps me going in that constituency is I have thank you cards. And I probably get very emotional about that. Well, little children write me and say, Mr. Pierre, thank you very much. When my mommy comes from work, I'm not afraid, she has lights. Oh, thank you very much. Some of them, and I'm coming to the second point. I can do my homework on the street lamp. That was in Castries East, a few minutes away from the center of Castries. Secondly, 114 households in Pave, Upper Bishop's Gap, Bagatelle, Bocage, Tiroche, Egad lands, and that's also a very interesting story. Egad land, which, if you allow me, I can tell you about it if you allow me to do it. Another interesting story where we revolutionize the level of human development in the area. I'll come back to Egad lands. Gira Kako got electricity for the first time. That's in 1997, my brother. For the first time, the beneficiaries of $295,000 electricity project paid for by the Labour government. Understand? Paid for by the Labour government. That was in 1997. 114 households. And you could see the joy in these children when they could do their homework with electricity. And now, many of them no longer live there, but they remember that. Egad land, Andrew. Egad lands was the only area in the constituency where the land was owned by one person. And I know you know about the land tenure problem in the constituency, which we can discuss later. Egad land was one huge area owned by one man, Kenny Anthony and the Labour Party, based on my representation, because at that time, Egad land was part of the constituency of Castries East. We went and we purchased the land from the Egad family for $1 million at that time. $1 million at that time. We bought the Egad land area when I was parliamentary representative under the Labour Party, and we built a road, a paved road going right down into Egad land. We uplifted the entire area. People bought the house spots, and from there they enhanced the area. They could borrow money to send their children to school, because the Labour Party began this social revolution in this constituency, which I will continue when we get back into government.
He also made it clear that he had fulfilled the unfinished dreams and work of his predecessor and rival, the late Romanus Lansico.
Romanus, God bless his soul, had dealt with, first of all, he did not get support from his party for the constituency. Just like what's happening now. Do you understand? Romanus's dream was to have a human resource development center and a police station in the constituency. That was his dream. He thought that was where the social infrastructure had to be built. Romanus didn't get the support. Romanus had to collect his own funds. He started a fundraising with the Marshall Women's League. And people don't know that. I don't think Prime Minister knows that history. He wasn't in St. Lucia when these things happened. His thoughts was not based on the people of St. Lucia. He is a Johnny-come-lately. What Romanus did, Romanus began to collect money with fundraising activities. They raffled a vehicle which was given by a Suzuki vehicle, which was given by a car owner, a car dealer called Mr. Lang. You understand? He raffled that vehicle with Mr. Lansico to raise funds for Human Resource Development Center. At the time, the government did not think it was a priority. The United Workers' Party government, they didn't think it was a priority, so they never encouraged him. When we came into government, we found Romanus had identified an area for the HRDC. We did not do like what they're doing now. The infrastructure that's there, they refused to maintain it. What we did is that we went to the EU. The Prime Minister, Kenny Anthony at the time, went to the EU and he said, listen to me, the people in this constituency, they need a human resource development center which will house a library and a daycare center. That was Romanus's dream. In fact, when the history books are written, I think I will call that HRDC the Romanus Lansico HRDC Center. Even though I was the one who built it, I think I'm going to ask, when we get back in the government, I'm going to ask that it be renamed the Romanus Lansico HRDC Center, because that was Romanus's.
The youthful SLP candidate for Micoud North, Jeremiah Norbert, who returned home after weeks in Martinique undergoing surgery, says the jubilant welcome he received is an indication of change in Micoud North. Norbert, who had his right foot amputated as a result of a motorcycle accident in February, was welcomed home by scores of Micoud North residents who followed him as he drove through the constituency on his way home. Here is a report from Stanley Lucian of HGS News Force.
It was a homecoming meant to warm the heart of a man who had felt the cold embrace of fate over the past 2 months following his serious motorcycle accident. Despite losing a limb, he kept the faith in his candidacy alive. Supporters on Saturday, decked in party colors, waved flags and chanted as they awaited his grand entrance. Then came the main event, a motorcade with the man of the moment in the lead, snaking its way through the Micoud North constituency, his prized target.
Jeremiah is the boss. He's the main man. He'll free us from captivity. Advantage from Gale.
The madam rich. Jeremiah is back there. There's nothing they can do about it.
It's not color, for better we go in. Vote Gale out.
Some members of the top brass of the St. Lucia Labour Party were present. Dr. Ernest Hilaire, the SLP's first deputy leader, says he was surprised by the response.
It wasn't something that was publicized, was organized as such. He basically wanted to come back to the community. And let me tell you, it just tells you a lot about the kind of support and the kind of enthusiasm they have for the candidacy of Jeremiah Norbert. And it probably makes a loud statement about where Micoud North will go in the coming election. I mean, I am certainly blown away by the kind of reaction I have seen here in Micoud North for Jeremiah. I mean, I have been here many times in the past in motorcades for the Labour Party. I've seen the kind of reception we've gotten, and I could not believe today that when I came down here to see the kind of reception that Jeremiah has gotten and the people that came out with flags to wave him and welcome him back home.
The SLP Micoud North candidate says the long time away from his constituents was tough. He was high in praise for those who kept the work alive in his absence.
2 months, 7 days from the constituents. So it's a well-deserved welcome, and I'm elated. I'm happy to be back in my constituency.
Norbert says he was taken aback by the reception.
This is just indicative of people wanting change. This is indicative of, I mean, we've had enough in this constituency, and people are asking for a change. And as I said to you earlier, the change is coming. The change is coming with Jeremiah.
It must have been a tight ordeal for you overseas.
Yes, it was. I mean, the most difficult part was thinking of how hard my constituents were taking, especially my campaign team. I knew that they were working very hard, day and night, very dedicated persons, and what has worked for them is they've understood that Miku se sanu, you understand? And they've taken the responsibility, even in my absence, to do what is necessary to make sure that this thing did not stop in my absence. And I appreciate that. I want to say kudos to my campaign team. And, you know, it's just joyful to be back in my constituency.
The police were onto the scene to bring an end to the social event, which was deemed to be in breach of the COVID-19 protocols. The law enforcers came in numbers, determined but diplomatic. This forced the leaders of the party to appeal to the members of the crowd, many of whom were not wearing masks, to end the celebrations. Fresh from his life-altering ordeal, Jeremiah Norbert is stoic as he seeks to go where no SLP candidate has gone before, defeating a United Workers' Party candidate in a general election in the Micoud North constituency.
The St. Lucia Labour Party has issued a statement with regard to an incident which occurred on Saturday afternoon involving SLP candidate for Castries South East, Joachim Henry. Mr. Henry entered an SDA church at Forestier in Castries South East during a service to confront his UWP opponent and government minister, Guy Joseph, over derogatory statements from Joseph about Henry. Here is the SLP Communications Officer, Mondi Lewis.
The St. Lucia Labour Party is deeply disturbed by the unwarranted verbal abuse and untruths being leveled towards candidate Joachim Henry and his family, especially during this time as they mourn the sudden death of their son, 27-year-old Dr. Josimar Henry, in the United States. The SLP believes there is a time and a place for everything. This period of mourning for Mr. Henry and his family has not deterred a campaign of deceit towards Mr. Henry from his opponent, the MP for Castries South East. Understandably, but regrettably, Mr. Henry, being overwhelmed with the death of his son, sought to address the MP for Castries South East, who has shown himself to be insensitive, abusive, and disrespectful to Mr. Henry and his family. Honorable Guy Joseph preaches peace and love on the pulpit, but in practice has taken politics to its lowest level against his opponent, Joachim Henry, who is still trying to deal with his loss. We appeal to opponents to practice empathy during this difficult time and to desist from casting aspersions and abuse at Mr. Henry and his family. Politics should not be soulless and be the source of more grief to parents who are already devastated by this tragic loss of their only son. The Henry family has received the body of their son and will lay him to rest in the upcoming days. We encourage citizens to uplift the family in prayer, especially during this period.
Meanwhile, on Tuesday morning during his appearance on Radio 100's What Makes Me Mad, SLP political leader Philip J. Pierre also addressed the issue.
First of all, I really want to express my deepest condolences to the Henry family. Nobody knows what it feels for a father and a mother and two lovely daughters to lose their 27-year-old son who has already become a doctor. I lost my parents, Andre, 6 weeks from each other. My parents died sick. My father died, and my mother died 6 weeks after. They'd been together. They'd been married for over 50 years. So when my father died, my mother just went to meet him, right? So nobody can understand what happens to a man when he loses his son. That emotion, Andre, you can't feel it. It never happened to you. And only somebody who it happened to can feel it, what it means, the hurt and the pain. When President Trump lost his son, Joe Biden suspended his campaign. He suspended his campaign for 2 days when President Trump lost his son. When Joachim Henry lost his son, I have it on the record, that was when Guy Joseph at meetings attacked him the most vehemently. That is when he said the worst things about Joachim Henry, Ernest Hilaire, Kenny Anthony, and Philip J. Pierre. And it's on the record, which we can play for you at any time. That's when he said the vilest things about Joachim Henry. Instead of saying that, listen to me, let me have a truce. The man's son is dead. Let's have a truce when the son is buried. That is what men of substance say. That's what people who genuinely care about people say. That's what people who not only looking for political mileage. Because in this election, the United Workers' Party believes that they must win at all costs. And when I say at all costs, I mean at all costs. So they will do anything. So what should happen is that Guy Joseph should call a political truce. He should say, let Joachim Henry rest. Let him bury his son. Let his son rest in peace. And after, I'll continue my politics. He never did that. He continued the most vehement and nasty attacks on Joachim Henry and his family.
So where were these attacks made? Is that
public? You want me to start playing one for you?
That's okay.
No, because when you tell people these things, and the United Workers' Party and their surrogates, they're so consumed in making political mileage and so consumed in winning at all costs. They have absolutely what the young people call no chill. You understand?
Because Mr. Pierre, up to now, we don't quite know what is it that...
Exactly. And I will not say on radio what he said. Because it's too low. It's too degrading. It's too unbecoming of a government minister. I must tell you that Joachim Henry is a human being. He's in pain. And that's not his nature. He's in pain. You understand? I will not tell you Joachim Henry should have gone to the church. But that's a man and his wife who is in anguish, who is suffering. And you hear another man in your same church. And by the way, Angie, I want to apologize on behalf of the party to the Seventh-day Adventists in the country and to the leadership of the Seventh-day Adventist religion if in any way what we did, what happened, brought the church into any issues. I want to apologize publicly on behalf of the Henry family and Joachim Henry in particular.
So you say you didn't support his actions?
I don't think that was the right thing at the time, but I can understand his anguish and his pain, and I know the church is forgiven, is a forgiving church. I ask them to forgive him if he made any transgressions. But I also want to say that at that point in time, you can never do. There are different stages of grief, and at that time you can never know what a man does. So I want us to pray for Joachim and his family. I want us to take him under our care. I want us to think about him. I want us to allow him to bury his son in peace. And let us forget the politics for a while, and let our humanity, let our human feeling. Not everything is not politics. And this is what happens in the United Workers' Party. The United Workers' Party has no chill. They don't understand. They use the vilest and the basest methods to achieve political gain. They say the biggest falsehoods, even though the truth is available. So I want to ask us to pray for Joachim and his family.
You're listening to SLP Newsbeat, a production of the St. Lucia Labour Party. In more news, the decision by the UWP to discard Health Minister Mary Isaac as the party's candidate for Castries South in the next general elections is the most telling demonstration of the failure of the government's healthcare policies. That's the view of the SLP spokesperson on health, Moses Musa Jean-Baptiste.
I don't have to speak about healthcare to respond to the Prime Minister's assertions or his presentation. I don't have to come to the House to pontificate on healthcare because we've 7 weeks to go before the end of the 5-year term. The people of St. Lucia, I am sure, if they have not made up their minds about healthcare, will do so very soon. But here is the evidence of this government's failure. One of the most glaring admissions by this government and the United Workers' Party about the failure of healthcare, of the healthcare policy and actions in St. Lucia, is this, Mr. Speaker. And after this, I don't have much more to say. There is no better demonstration of the people's feelings about healthcare in the Prime Minister's new St. Lucia than the rejection of the government's much celebrated health minister by our own party at the local and national levels. There is no better demonstration of that. No better demonstration. The individual who was charged to take the big person you are talking about in Parliament, the best health minister, and all of that. There's no better demonstration of this government's failure. By their own admission, through their organization, their local organizations and their national organization, that this person has failed so dramatically that she cannot even be considered for parliamentary office. So that alone, Mr. Speaker, is evidence that the government itself has decided that they have failed so badly in healthcare that the person who led it cannot be part of the team for parliamentary office. What more can I say?
In our commentary today, George Goddard reflects on the homecoming of Jeremiah Norbert.
In the general elections of 1997, all constituencies but Micoud North were won by the St. Lucia Labour Party. 16-1 was the result. Even the constituency that until then had been thought to be impregnable, the Micoud South of Sir John, had been bagged by the SLP. This time around, 2021, when it comes to Micoud North, to borrow a line from the mighty Shadow, are you feeling the feeling? I am indeed feeling the feeling that Micoud North could well follow in the footsteps of Mr. Cass Elias in putting a Labour representative in the House for the first time. A Labour rep for all of the people who will transcend tribal flambeau politics. The handwriting is on the wall, and it is the handwriting of a young man, Jeremiah Norbert, who dares to declare that his people will no longer languish in the proverbial bouteille noire of the politics of deception and self-enrichment. Micoud North has demonstrated before that its people have the capacity to see through the neglect of the UWP. And now, the in-your-face corruption and self-aggrandizement that builds condominiums and sees no guy in providing our children with modern tools of education. Abel Wilson, in 1997, came within a mere 160 votes of doing it. So it is doable, particularly by a man who is young enough to challenge the entrenched feelings of resignation and hopelessness of an older generation, yet mature enough to understand the imperatives of development that require the honest and forthright leadership that Philip J. Pierre and the SLP will provide, and indeed the honest and forthright leadership that he will provide. After all, contrary to the disingenuous "yo tout sais même" of some, the party's track record is clear. What is especially remarkable about the candidacy of Jeremiah Norbert is that it has drawn on the natural warmth of the people of his community, who have embraced him as one of their own. They have wrapped themselves around him, and he has melded into their arms as only a son can, with no malicious pretensions or presumptuous feelings of entitlement. He will work with them. He does not pretend to occupy any high and haughty ground above them. And this is what makes him Labour and St. Lucian, and a true vessel for transforming the social fabric of his community. Jeremiah, a young man of exemplary character, has become the spark with the potential to bring the Micoud North community, every demographic, together in true transforming action. He is no superhuman. Like his leader, he is a humble man whose singular mission is to serve. Yes, I am feeling the feeling of change for the better, not just change for the sake of change.
That was George Goddard with commentary. To end today's edition, we now recap the headlines. Castries East MP and SLP political leader Philip J. Pierre defends his record as a parliamentary representative. The SLP candidate for Micoud North, Jeremiah Norbert, says that his jubilant welcome home from the people of Micoud North is a sure sign of impending change. The SLP spokesperson for health, Moses Jean-Baptiste, declares the decision by the ruling United Workers' Party not to continue with Health Minister Mary Isaac as a candidate in the next general elections is a clear sign that the government's policy on health has failed. That's SLP Newsbeat. I'm Kirby Allen.